Hey guys, it's Dave. Welcome back to Keys to the Cosmos. I want to just do a really brief video on sort of the keys to creating a beautiful astrophotography picture. You see so many of them on Instagram or, that people post and you wonder, well, what went into that? What's the difference between maybe yours as you're starting out and a guy's that's been doing it for quite some time? And I was thinking that there's a few things that we can focus on. Obviously, there's a lot of factors involved, and it's never easy to pinpoint exactly. But there are some things that you can sort of implement in your routine, in your setup, that can help to eliminate a lot of the problems that I see plague guys when they're trying to capture, these deep sky objects and then process them. And one thing I'll say off the bat, in a lot of people that follow me on Instagram, Keys to the Cosmos, or on the feed, I see that a lot of people seem to struggle with processing, and that's normal, especially when you're just starting out. Processing really is half the battle. Without good processing, your data means nothing. But what I will say though, to add to that is, without good data, your processing will have a limit to what it can achieve. So I always think that you should focus on collecting really good quality data, and then your processing can improve over the months, days, weeks, months, as you continue practicing that and trying again and again. But without good data, it doesn't matter how good you are processing. It will really limit what you're able to achieve. So one of the first tips I would say is to focus on the data. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's a few things that come to mind. So first of all, good planning is involved, and I want to make a video just on this. What I do before I go out. Even now, whatever I'm shooting, whether it's the first time or I've shot it before, but particularly if you've never shot a target before, what can you do to prepare so that you make the best use of your time and you're able to obtain a quality image? But a couple things, just off the top of my head that come to mind. Well, first of all, you want to think about what target are you shooting. And not only that, what time of year is it, obviously. You want to make sure that target's in the sky. And also your location. Where is that target when you're planning to go out? Is it at 15 degrees in the sky? Or maybe it's, you got about 20 minutes before it goes behind a tree or a roof or something like that. So what's the accessibility, you could say, to that target you're thinking about shooting from your location or whatever location you're planning to use? So that's the first thing, is it really the right target to be shooting that time of year from that location? Another thing you need to consider is what type of target is it? Is it a galaxy? Is it a reflection nebula? Is it an emission nebula? These are things that you need to know, and with a little bit of research, just a quick Google search, you can learn that. Instagram's great for that too. So, and then that will affect your equipment. So, first of all, if you're using the wrong kind of filter, which if you're shooting from Bortle 9 or 8 or 9, like I am here in Toronto, a filter, as I've mentioned, is crucial. If you're using the wrong type of filter, it'll actually hinder your data. It'll actually block out a lot of that light you want. So, for example, if you're shooting an emission nebula, like I would say probably most of them are, you're going to want a narrowband filter like this one. This is the L Extreme. I've talked about this one briefly. It's incredible. I really suggest that you look into this one. If you're shooting from heavy light pollution like I am and you're shooting a lot of emission nebula, it's incredible, and it can make your data so much better and so much easier to process. It's really incredible. But if you're shooting something like a galaxy or a reflection nebula, then this isn't going to work. It's actually going to block out a lot of that light that you want. You want something more like this, which is more of a broadband, not as aggressive. This is the Skytech CLS CCD. Doesn't block out light pollution as well, so you got to keep that in mind. But it also will allow those specific photons that you want to help create, galaxies and reflection nebula. That just wouldn't work with a narrowband filter. So that's something to keep in mind. That's something you need to know. Make sure you have the right equipment. Also, where are you shooting it? Is it near full moon and you're doing reflection or a galaxy? You're going to have a hard time. A filter like this just does not block out moonlight. that moonlight is going to wash out your picture, and you're not going to get very good data, even if you take hours worth. So that's another thing to consider. There's apps that tell you the phases of the moon, and then you can use Stellarium that will show you exactly where the moon is in comparison to the target you're thinking about. And that's something that you definitely want to factor in as well. And of course, there's the basics. A good polar align. Even with a wide field refractor, guys say you don't need it, but I don't find that's true. You want to get as best a polar alignment you can. And even if you're just taking 1 minute exposures like I generally do with my setup, a good polar alignment makes for good data. Fairly round stars, something at least you can be happy with. And, that will help create a nice picture. Of course, your focus is important, adjusting it as there's swings in temperatures. That's something that you need to keep in mind as well. But you see, when you have good data and enough of it as well, I should add, you don't want to come home ideally with 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Now, if that's all you're able to get that night, that's fine. You can add to it another night. But you want to plan a target where make the most of your night. You can go out and get 2, maybe even 3 hours worth. Because when you first start this hobby, you're happy just to get anything. And that's normal. That's to be expected. I was too. But one thing I learned is I really wish sometimes I had gave a little more thought before I went out and got really good data that where everything is centered, it's in focus, a good polar alignment, and I'm able to get 2, maybe 3 hours worth. Because you can always add on to that later on. When you see these guys that have these 17-hour, 20-hour integration pictures, they're incredible. And that's really the only way you can get that is with that much integration time. But not that you need to do that right away, and I don't do that myself either. But when you have quality data, you can add to it later on, the next season after that. And when it's framed up nicely, dead center, it's easy to do again the next time. And you're not guessing, you're not getting overlapping exposures, which when you go to stack it, you get weird lines in your finished product. So that's something I would say. Focus on the data. Try to get really good quality data. And even though you're processing, you may not be happy with it the first few times, that's okay. I've had pictures that I took that I really didn't like. And again, they were still only about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I just thought, well, that's the best I can do with that little bit of exposure time, integration time. But as my skills improved with processing, I went back and redid them, reprocessed them. And because the data was quality, even though it wasn't a lot of it was quality. And I was able to get some really nice results and unexpected. In fact, one picture, I'll actually show it. I showed this on my very first one. This is NGC 7822. So on the left is the original picture, same amount of exposure time. And on the right is the one when I reprocessed it. And I now love that one on the right. It's actually one of my favorite pictures. You saw the print on my first video. I thought it turned out beautifully. And the colors, I love it. And that's just a matter of processing. So that's something you will learn as you go. You find your own style. But if the data is not there, you're not able to do anything with it. It's going to limit it, and then you have to reshoot it. And that's fine. That's okay at first. Your first year, I'm still in my first year. And there's just some objects I don't bother. The data it's not to my standard even now. So I have to reshoot it, and that's fine. But you'll find, especially on cloudy nights when you're itching to get out there and you're not able to be able to go back and reprocess some data you had from whatever months ago, it's really fulfilling to see. You'll see just how far you've progressed on the processing side of things. So, as I mentioned, a good setup. Also choosing the right telescope. You see all these beautiful pictures, like let's say Thor's helmet. It's a big, beautiful, detailed picture. Well, what were they using to shoot that? Probably 150 millimeter refractor telescope, or maybe they're using a reflector, like the Celestron 8 SE or Edge HD, I should say. And then, you're using this 76 millimeter. There's going to be a difference. You're not going to get those details, and it's not going to quite look the same. So you want to sort of pick the right scope for the target. Understanding how big is it, how faint or bright is it, and then when you combine that, so with the right setup, the right equipment, right filter, the right time of year, the right position in the sky for your location, when all that comes together, you get really good quality data that you can reprocess over and over, that you can add to years ahead if you're organized and you keep it on your computer knowing this is what I shot, this was maybe the year I shot it, and then you can add to that the next year and the year after that, and eventually you may get a picture with 17, 20, 30 hours integration time, and that's when you get a real masterpiece like some of these guys are doing out there that are just incredible, amazing detail, and such a difference. But focus on the data. Educate yourself, learn before you go out. Like I said, I do want to make a video specifically to show you how I do this, how I try to find objects in the night sky without using a go-to mount. But knowing the basics and how other guys have done it will help give you suggestions on how you can make the best use of your time, collect that data, and then you can take it from there and reprocess it over and over and get even better results, add to it, and one day you'll have a real masterpiece on your hands. So just a quick video on that, on keys to a really good picture. It's half the data, half the processing. The processing, you can learn more and more. It doesn't require anything. You can do it at home anytime, but the data is so important. You need to be able to capture quality images that you can continually use time and time again and add to, and you don't have to continually reshoot, because that takes so much more time and other things can go wrong when you try. But when you focus on collecting really good quality data, it's what leads to really beautiful images. So I hope that one helped, guys. Thanks so much. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.